Hey everyone, I'm Jay.
And I'm Sean.
And we watched a movie.
Yes, we did.
We watched Random Acts of Violence. So that is a brand new horror drop. It is available to rent on VOD. And boy, what a horror movie.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot. So if you like horror movies, then that is good news for you. I probably invited this into the universe by sort of complaining that a lot of the recent horror movies we'd watched were not that horrific. So they were like, oh yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, they showed you.
They did. So this movie is based on a comic book by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti. So it's a one-shot, one-and-done kind of thing. It was, I think, released in 2010. It's been in development since about then as well. And finally, it was Canada's own Jay Baruchel who brought it to the big screen. So not only is he directing, he co-wrote it along with Jesse Chabot. And yeah, he stars in it as well. Jay Baruchel. I love Jay Baruchel, so I will see almost anything with him and by him, although I have not seen Goon 2, which was his baby. Yeah, I did watch this.
You did. All the way through.
Maybe, would I have been better off with Goon 2? It
Probably.
Can't possibly be scarier than this.
No, there must be fewer beheadings.
Hopefully. I don't know. It is a Canadian directing a hockey movie, so all bets are off. Yeah. So, okay. So this is a little bit meta because, like I said, this is a movie based on a graphic novel. In the movie and the graphic novel, it is about a guy who writes comic books. And he writes them sort of inspired by a murder spree that happened in the small town he grew up in. I think he, was quite young when these things happened, so he only has a shadowy understanding of what went on. But basically, there was a string of random killings, and pretty brutal stuff.
Yep.
But I think it's almost the randomness that scares people the most, because then everyone feels like a potential victim.
That's right.
It's not a good thing when society engages in victim blaming, but part of us just wants to believe this is the reason why I'm safe. This is why they were asking for it. This is, yeah.
Yeah, they went into the dark basement.
Yeah, or the alley, or the forest.
Yep, or the summer camp.
Yes. Yeah. So, Jesse Williams plays the comic book writer Todd. And Todd's been at it for several years. The comic book is called Slasherman. And it is a pretty graphically violent comic book.
Absolutely.
The serial killer is the protagonist. And we kind of get the impression that Todd almost admires the artistry of the killings. And he works really hard to always be one-upping himself from one issue to the next to come up with these elaborate murder scenes, because they're kind of like works of art to him. His girlfriend, Kathy, played by Jordana Brewster, in a very rare outside of the Fast and Furious universe sighting, I have to say. So she, and this is obviously a point of contention between them, because she kind of thinks, like a lot of people do, that we shouldn't be glorifying the guy who committed these murders. And, lots of people don't even want to name those names anymore.
Right.
They want to remember the victims, but not, because a lot of these violent crimes can almost be attention seeking.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that can be part of what drives them to kill. And so a lot of people feel like we need to step away from that.
Yeah, take it away and then there's less motivation.
Yes.
You're not going to stop it entirely, but you will reduce them in theory.
So Todd is making good money writing these comic books from the point of view of a serial killer. His girlfriend is not too happy about that and doesn't really read the stuff. And they are about to go on a road trip with his assistant Aurora and his publisher, business partner Ezra, played by Baruchel. So the four of them are going on a road trip. They leave Toronto, head for not just America, but rural America. That's part of the reason of going, is partly because Todd is about to end the series. And there's a lot of pressure to do that because he's constantly one-upping himself and he wants the perfect ending. But he doesn't know how to end it because in real life, this guy was never caught. And I mean, obviously this thing has gone on for years, so most of it is creation out of his own mind. It's not like he's telling just the story. It's just, that was just the jumping point.
Right.
But he kind of wants to go back to his old hometown. He wants to check out rural, quiet, sleepy towns in America to try to draw inspiration for where he can take this and end this. Meanwhile, Kathy is actually working on her own project where she wants to interview people who knew the victims, the real life victims of the real life serial killer. Because this is, I guess, her way of making things right with the universe. She's going to give the victims a chance to be heard, even though they're gone, so they can't. But their friends, their families, the devastation that that kind of thing can leave in a very small community, especially where you know everyone and everyone, we have almost a communal grief and trauma. So I think those are really kind of interesting starting points for a horror movie. So meanwhile, they're stopping at like radio stations and book signings and stuff, and they're kind of doing a little press tour in the midst of all of this. So they've got a lot of stuff going on. And of course, boyfriend and girlfriend are fighting a little bit over whether this is really right, whether we're glorifying the violence. And all of a sudden, murder starts happening, because this is a horror movie. And the horror is that a murderer is copycatting the crimes that are so beautifully illustrated in Todd's comic books. So taking literal triptychs, even pages ripped from the comic books, and recreating them in real life with new real victims. And these things, like I said, the serial killer in the comic book thinks of himself as an artist. These are elaborate scenes. He is mutilating, posing bodies. It's rough going. Whew. So because of that, because it's those, like the meta, it's happening at like at least 3 different layers where people are commenting on what our role is in creating this and consuming it, and what that is doing to us culturally. So the film is kind of making comments on that, on the rightness of it, the wrongness of it, the ethicalness of it. The ethicalness, I just said that out loud.
It's a new word.
Not for me. But at the same time, it's also doing the things it's judging. So it's very interesting to make a movie around the question of, should we be making a movie? Around the question of, should we be making the comic book? Yeah, it's a little bit of a head spin. But at its heart, this is very much a slasher flick, a horror movie. There's a decent body count, but they are a special kind of carved up and displayed. So there's some gore happening.
Oh, there's so much gore.
There's some dread, there's some tension, and there's some gore. So you're getting big servings of all of those things.
Yep.
So how are you feeling about the movie, Sean?
Well, that made me quite uneasy, I have to admit.
Okay. Uneasy, like, is there someone under my bed? Or uneasy, like, ooh, what is my role in having paid $5 to rent this movie?
I guess both. I
Really?
guess I had terror and existential
Guilt.
crisis.
Yeah, okay. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the film. I thought it was a little bit elevated. He was playing with color a lot. And lights. You see a lot of lights, streaky reds, and then sometimes everything's bathed in blue or green. Green and reds are coming up a lot, and what does that mean? You know, it's talking to itself, it's talking about itself. There's a lot of weird little layers that you're kind of keeping track of. But clearly, aside from hockey, which is a passion of his, we all know that, and certain toothless dragons, I think he is a fan of the horror genre because...
I think that's a safe bet, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, how much we're worried about Justin and Jimmy, the guys who first thought of this and colored it to life. I mean, I'm sure their teachers flagged them for counseling as children.
Absolutely, yeah.
And yet, now we have what is a work of art, but is it art if it's depicting murder? And is it right to be entertained by this stuff? I mean, I always think those are fascinating questions, and I've always had I was going to say love-hate, but it's been mostly a hate-hate relationship with horror movies.
Yeah.
Because I'm not good with tension. I'm okay with gore, but I do think, like, how do I feel as a person just watching a body be degraded like this? So I won't watch torture porn like Saw, that franchise, and stuff like that. Like, that is not for me. I try to make exceptions for good horror movies. Anything by Jordan Peele, I'll see. This is not a Jordan Peele movie. I think it tries to have a brain, but mostly it's got guts.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get to that level of self-awareness. I think it is aware of what you've said. It is trying to operate on a number of different levels, but doesn't really tie it together with some kind of, you know, with thesis to say all of this was for a purpose, which I think would have made it something great.
A 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with maybe a 7.
Yeah, 6 or a 7, absolutely. That's a solid, like, it's a slasher film. There is a lot of gore, and
which is a good thing for people who like horror movies.
Like it,
you're gonna get what you're asking for.
And it's also doing a bit of a different thing. It's not your typical Jason or Freddy or Michael Myers. It does have a different story than just a madman on the loose, killing teens.
Although there's
a madman on the loose killing teens.
Yeah, and you will yell at them. I yelled at them.
Yeah.
But come on.
Well, yeah.
Be serious here.
Yeah, make better decisions, right?
Yes, because you don't have to be in a horror movie to know, like, lock your doors, check the back seat.
Drive away.
Get away. Hello! Don't hang out in the dark by yourself. Just, like, talking out loud about how white and vulnerable your neck is in the pale moonlight. Like, come on. You're asking for trouble. And
trouble found
you. Yes, as it does.
Yep.
Goodness. But I survived the movie. I enjoyed the movie. I didn't know that I was going to. I was a little proud of our boy.
Yeah.
And it's a tidy little Canadian film with Jesse Williams, man. That man does not need to be this handsome. And it was almost he's distractingly handsome in this movie, where we are kind of being asked to judge his morals a little bit, and like, where is this coming from, and is he someone who admires serial killers, or is he maybe a serial killer, guys? Yeah, it's an interesting character. and just way too handsome of a guy. We need somebody who's a little more, like someone I can feel conflicted about, because, you know, I will forgive a handsome man almost anything, and he knows it. So. All right, so Sean says it's a 6 or a 7. Let us know how you rated it. We will look in the comments, and we will judge you on them. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.